everyone, and welcome to Who Ate It First, a food history podcast with a twist. I'm Kendall Rehnquist.
And I'm Logan Rehnquist.
So how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
Happy Lunar New Year.
Yeah. Great segue, actually, because in honor of Lunar New Year, I wanted to do a certain food.
Okay. Moon pie.
No.
Oh.
I wanted to cover bao,
Oh, yay.
the popular Chinese dish.
We love bao.
Yeah, it's super good. We've seen it a lot. There's that beautiful Pixar short called Bao, which you love. And you cry every time.
I love it. We just watched it and I just cried. Like, it's so cute. Oh,
It is.
Pixar.
It's a really cute one.
That was...
And I have a little surprise for you at the end.
What, do you have to watch it again?
No, I'm not going to make you watch it again.
Oh,
But I'll share that in a little bit.
okay.
We also watch a lot of YouTube, people on YouTube
Yeah, we do.
that are of various Asian descent. And they also do a lot of food content. So we see a lot of bao and other Chinese and Taiwanese and Japanese and other various kinds of Asian dishes. So I've been hungry for that a lot.
They all look so good.
Yeah, they look delicious. And I've never made bao. I even bought a steamer for this episode.
He did. We
So-
don't steam things.
No, we don't. So I'm hoping it'll be good. I watched a video and the chef on that video said you need at least 7 days to learn how to make bao.
Great.
And I have an hour. So
Great. We are off to a great,
We're off to a great start.
And I also watched a video from some of those same content makers, and she was with her mom making bao. And so I'm glad that you got a recipe with measurements, because the episode that I watched, her mom gave her none measurements, just said, oh yeah, enough beef or enough cabbage. Or she would say, let me smell. That's not enough. Like, there were no measurements. It was by smell or look or a pinch of this, a dash of that. There's no measurements. So I can just imagine that this recipe would be complicated.
yeah, I noticed that there seemed to be a trend of that where there was a lot of people trying to get recipes for bao from their parents, or their mom in particular. And the mom just kept telling them not actual measurements of anything. They're just like, keep going until it smells right. Like, well, what does that mean? What does
Exactly.
it smell right mean? It's like, well, it just smells done. It smells right. Like, what else do I need to tell you about? Like, just do it.
In her video, the mom took the bowl out of her hands and would smell it. Like, she wouldn't wait for the daughter to hand it to her. She would take the bowl out of her hand and go, oh, that's not right. That's not done.
But the amazing thing is it always comes out like incredible every time.
Yeah.
And perfect. So they're onto something. I hope to be that skillful at a dish that I can just like throw it together
Yeah.
and it comes out great every time.
Yeah. Well, you do pretty good chocolate chip cookies, I think. Those are pretty consistent.
Yeah, I still need to. I don't have like the measurements perfected in my mind, though.
Oh, I see
still
what you're
need to
saying.
like reference the recipe every time.
I see what you're saying.
In terms of like the steps to make it, yeah, but I can never remember the actual amounts of things that
I see what you're saying. I can make a mean bowl of cereal off the top of my head. I don't mean to brag
That
or anything.
is complex.
I don't mean to brag, but
You have to get that ratio of cereal to milk just right, and everybody's a little bit different.
that's exactly right.
I
don't
prefer
like-
almost none.
Yeah, you don't like a lot of milk,
No,
and I like a decent amount of milk.
I'm getting on the milk train. I do like cereal with milk now, but I have to straight up eat it right away. Like, if I let it sit for 2 minutes, it's too soggy, and then I can't eat it anymore.
You
'Cause-
needed Clark's non-nutritive cereal varnish.
I know. I wish that was a real thing.
Maybe it is.
Like, when
in the
that-
cereal industry.
When I watched that movie, I was like, wait, this would solve all my problems. Is this like real, or is this just part of the joke of the movie? And I think it's part of the joke of the movie.
we might have departed from bao.
Yeah. What were we talking about again?
Bao?
Chinese Lunar New Year and bao? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Jumping back to bao. Baozi, or bao, originated in China. Surprise, surprise that we're talking about it. There are written records of bao going all the way back to the Song dynasty. in particular the Northern Song Dynasty. And the Northern Song Dynasty was a Chinese imperial dynasty from February 4th, 960 to March 20th, 1127. So there is a huge amount of history I could cover about the Song Dynasty, but I'm not going to because this is a food history podcast and not a normal history podcast. So what is bao? It is a type of yeast leaven filled bun. There are many variations in fillings and preparation, but most are steamed. I don't speak Chinese, so I don't know the correct pronunciations of this, of probably a lot of these words. I'm going to get it wrong. And yeah, we're just going to go for it. I'm going to do my best effort. If you want to tear me a new one, send me an email at whoateit.first.com. So going back to that, bao is a variation of mantao, which is an unfilled steam bun that is traditionally found more often in northern China, where wheat instead of rice was grown. There is a legend, which is actually pretty cool, that mantao was invented by a military strategist by the name of Zhu Liang. Probably butchered that. And I'm going to actually read a quote from this, from an article here. I'm on a website called chungying.co.uk, and they have an article about the history of bao that was written on September 16th, 2019. And to quote their article on the legend of this military strategist, on the way back from battle during his famous southern campaign to quash a rebellion around the area which is now the Sichuan province, Zhu was faced with an enormous logistical challenge. The strategist had defeated his enemies but was staring at the prospect of defeat not by an army, but by a river, which was impossible to cross. The river was said to be closely guarded by a deity who refused to allow safe passage to Zhu unless he threw the heads of 50 of his soldiers into the river. Wanting to satisfy the deity's demands without sacrificing his troops, Zhu ordered for 50 buns that looked like human heads, due to their flat bases and round shapes, to be thrown into the river.
Oh my gosh.
The plan was a success. The deity was deceived, safe passage was granted, and buns were named mantao, which apparently roughly translates to barbarians' heads, in celebration of the famous victory that Zhu had masterminded over the barbarian rebels.
Okay. That's amazing.
And then I love this next part that they wrote. This military victory then developed into a people's victory against the barbarities of bad lunch, as the buns became filled with a huge variety of delicious meats and vegetables.
Bad lunch. We won't have it.
So there you go. That's the legend of how mantao was invented. There are two types of bao that are served. There's da bao, or big bun. Got big buns.
Big bun.
Measuring about 10 centimeters across. They are usually purchased for takeaway.
10 centimeters?
Yeah. So they're big boys.
Oh, dang, that's a big bun.
Yeah. And that's why they're normally for takeaway. So you can go buy one like off the street or wherever and then take it with you and walk around and eat it as you're going to your office, the gym, home, whatever. You just want a tasty snack. There is also zhao bao, or small bun.
Oh.
Which is half that, 5 centimeters wide, and are usually the ones that you'll find eaten in restaurants, but some places do sell them for takeaway as well. Each order is typically between 3 and 10 pieces and served with a variety of dipping sauces, including vinegar, soy sauce, chili paste. I also saw like a sweet chili sauce, etc. There's all different kinds of things you can have as a dipping sauce.
Yum.
Bao is actually considered a breakfast dish, but due to their popularity, transportability, and customizability, they can be eaten for any meal or snack. And speaking of that, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of bao. I listed 3 here that sounded really good. There is char siu, which is barbecue flavored pork that is filled in the bun. And those are found a lot in Cantonese cuisine, such as in Hong Kong.
They did that on Worth It, right? Because they had 2 versions of bao.
Yeah. Probably one of them.
I feel like one was. Yeah.
Willem was also in the Binging with Babish video that I watched to do some research on this.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You're right.
Because I love his content, and he's amazing. Xiaolong Bao, which is meat-filled bao from Shanghai that contains an aspic or meat jelly that reverts to broth when cooked, so it is kind of like a soup dumpling.
Oh, I think they did have those on Worth It because you're supposed to like bite a little bit and then like slurp it. Yeah.
They had soup dumplings. Yeah. These are, I think, similar to that, but more of like a bao version of that.
That's really fun. That seems really interactive, and I like that.
Yeah. That was a cool episode, and it looked really good.
It did look super
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like literally jelly that you put in there, and then when you steam it, it'll heat it up, melt it, and then when you bite into it, it's like you're eating soup out of the bun.
That's so inventive.
Yeah, it's like a bread bowl.
That's so smart. The OG bread bowl.
And then there is Nai Huang Bao, which is filled with a sweet yellow custard.
Custard?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Is
so
it
it's more
sweet?
of a sweet bao. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it's more of like a sweet version of that. There was a video that I was watching, and he said that in the north, bao is usually a bit more savory, and in southern China, the bao you find is normally sweeter. Huh. Like their bread is sweeter and things like that.
That's really interesting.
And the char siu, I think that's typically found in like more southern China.
That's really interesting.
I've never been in China, but I did find that interesting. So, of course, we already talked about the Pixar film Bao, right? And how much you love it.
It's so good.
Well, this is the surprise. The director of that movie, I'm going to mess up her name too, Dami Shi, released her mom's bao recipe. And that is what we're going to be making today.
Oh, fun.
And it is the same thing that Binging with Babish made on his video for this. So if you do want to kind of follow along, then I definitely recommend watching that video also. One, because I already said I love his content. He's amazing and hilarious. And two, it will give you like a really great visual for what we're doing. Obviously, we're going to have pictures and videos on our Instagram, so be sure to follow that. But also, I would recommend checking out that video too.
I don't know if we're going to do it very well, though. I've
no,
never
it's going to come out terrible.
I've never tried.
I didn't have 7 days to get this ready.
Oh, gosh.
So I had a couple hours. So we're gonna try our best, though. You know, that's what this podcast is about: trying new things, trying our best.
I'm scared.
And then coming back and talking about how much we messed up. So it'll be okay.
That's only happened once thus far. Maybe we'll do better this time.
We'll see. Catch you on the flippity flip. All right, we are back in the kitchen. And you had a fun little factoid that you mentioned before.
So I don't remember where I heard this. It might have been Cinema Therapy, which is a YouTube channel that I watch. It's a therapist and a former director, and they rewatch movies, and basically the therapist therapizes the characters in the movie, and then the director talks about like why some directorial choices were made. It's actually really interesting. So they were talking about Turning Red, which is a phenomenal movie, by the way. But so the director of that and Bao, Domi Shi, in 2018 did Bao and the 2022 feature film Turning Red, becoming the first woman to direct a short film and then the first woman with sole director's credit on a feature film for Pixar, which was Turning Red.
Thanks for sharing that. So to make her recipe for the dough, she has 4 cups of flour, a 3/4 teaspoon of dry yeast, and 500 milliliters of water. And then for her filling, she has a pound of ground pork, a pound of Chinese cabbage, 1 carrot, 2 to 3 green onion stalks, 1 egg, 1 to 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, a teaspoon of olive oil, half a teaspoon of chicken bouillon powder, a teaspoon of oyster sauce, 2 to 3 teaspoons of cooking wine, salt and pepper, and there's a last note that says adjust all seasonings to taste.
Sure.
Which I don't know how you can do that when you can't taste raw feeling, but So step 1, we are going to mix the flour and yeast into a mixing bowl. Then we're going to add water to that and knead it until a solid dough ball forms. If it gets too sticky, add more flour. If it gets too dry, add more water.
Oh, I'm having PTSD from the boba recipe.
This one's easier. So once that forms a nice dough ball, we're going to let it sit. We're going to wrap it in some saran wrap, and then we're going to let it sit and rise for about 2 hours. While that's resting, we can cook half the ground pork in a pan and mix it with the raw pork. So again, we're only cooking half the pork, and then the rest is raw.
That seems unsafe.
The rest of it's going to get cooked when we steam it, right?
Mm.
So I don't know entirely. So that might be to help release some of the fat, or to... Honestly, I don't know why that's in the recipe, but that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
There's not really an explanation. Step 5, we are going to mix the pork with the chopped cabbage, carrots, and green onions, ground ginger, sesame, olive oil, pepper, chicken bouillon powder, oyster sauce, cooking wine, the beaten egg, and salt. And we're going to do a little mixy. Then we are going to roll out the dough using her mom's windmill technique.
Windmill?
Yeah, and this is the thing that I was kind of mentioning, is something that you can see on the Binging with Babish video a little bit easier than I'm probably going to be able to describe it.
I'm going to have to watch it.
Or watch the Bao short, because she also does it in that too. I'll read what she has written here and see if that helps explain it. Once your dough has risen, dust your countertop with flour and roll out the dough into a long rope using the windmill technique. And she doesn't have anything written, so I'm going to describe it.
It looked like she made a donut.
Yeah, she did. So she took the dough, and then she took both of her thumbs and kind of pierced a hole into the middle of it. And then she put her hands into it and started doing kind of a spinning windmill motion to make that hole bigger and bigger and bigger until it formed kind of like this donut or snake, whatever you want to call it. And then she ripped off part of it to make one long snake strand.
Got it.
And then after that, she rolls it on her board or countertop to make it more even, up to, it looked kind of like maybe the thickness of the cardboard part of a paper towel.
Okay.
I would guess that it's probably about that thickness in diameter.
Okay.
And once you have that, you're going to cut it into 1/2-inch pieces and roll them out to form wrappers. And you're just going to kind of roll them into discs, each piece. And then here's the other thing I'm not going to even try to describe on this, but we are going to fill each pouch. So you take one of your pouches, put it in your hand, dump a little bit. This says 1/2 tablespoon of filling into the center. And you're carefully going to pinch and fold the wrapper closed, twisting the top to finish. Make sure to press the dough tight to seal the top. And yeah, it's kind of this weird pinching motion that I'm not going to even begin to describe. But it's going to have this nice little pleated top if you do it correctly. And again, you can watch the Bao short, which I highly recommend. Or you can also watch the Binging with Babish video, and he kind of shows how to do that. So then you're going to bring a pot of water to a boil. And you're going to place the bao in a steaming basket lined with, this says cabbage leaves. I'm going to we have some silicone mats that you can also put in the steamer. So I'm going to use some of those. But you can also use cabbage leaves according to this to help prevent sticking. And place the basket on top of the boiling pot of water. Close the lid, steam for 15 minutes, then turn off the heat and let the buns rest for 5 minutes. And then you carry that little basket to your kitchen table or wherever you want to eat and do a little nom 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 nom.
Is there a sauce that goes with this, or are these meant to be eaten without sauce?
You can do whatever you want. You can eat them without sauce. We have some hoisin sauce in there. We also have soy sauce. So do whatever you want, baby. We have some sriracha.
Not saying that it's going to need it. I'm not I'm not saying that it won't be delicious by itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I mentioned, like there's all different kinds of sauces you can put on this. So like really the world's your oyster, right? So you can
The world's your bao, you know what I'm saying?
The world's your bao. You can do whatever you want. So yeah, the last step on her notes here is that you can either eat it or adopt it as your surrogate child.
It's so cute.
She also made very cute illustrations for her bao recipes that
so cute.
Maybe we'll share on Instagram or share at least a link to. They're really cute.
So cute. She's amazing.
So we're going to finish these babies up and jump into Rave or Roast to tell you how it went. Wish us luck. Hey everyone, welcome back to Rave or Roast. Before we actually get into our segment, there's a couple things I wanted to mention. We're doing the segment a little later. Normally we kind of jump right into the kitchen. So not to get too far into how the sausage gets made, the best way that we found to do the kitchen stuff is we actually chat about the recipe that we're going to make. And then we go make it off mic. And then I usually record some Foley, which is what you hear sometimes.
Yeah, so like what they do in movies.
Yeah.
When they add the sound back in.
Yeah, exactly. Because our kitchen sucks for audio. I tried a lot of different things. The audio was terrible every time, no matter what I would do to try to fix it.
Yeah. Our kitchen is not conducive to podcasting. Not that I think that anyone's kitchen really is.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we do is we record talking about that episode. Then we kind of go off of our mics to actually cook the thing. And that's when we do the pictures and we do the Foley. And then we will come back and after we've eaten it to do the Rave Roast section. I'm telling you all of that because there was a few days between when we did the recipe section and when we are now here and talking to you. So a couple things. First is we went to a concert last night. So if our voices sound really bad, that's because we were screaming our hearts out for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And my throat hurts as I'm doing this.
Me too. I'm also really tired.
Yeah. So that's one thing. But we gotta do it for the content and our schedule of releasing these episodes. So we're gonna power through that.
I'm gonna power through. I just kind of sound like a man.
If our voice cracks, just ignore that. The second thing I wanted to mention, more importantly, is I actually made a small modification to what I did for this recipe. So I still, for the filling, used Domishi's recipe, her mom's recipe for the filling. But when I attempted to do the dough the first time, I ran into a lot of issues, partly because I ran out of flour.
Yeah, that was the big problem, I would say. Yeah.
And I had to use cake flour, which did not go well because cake flour is really low in gluten. And it was just a mess.
It was really strange. I'm not even really a baker, but even just as a normal person looking at that, I was like, that looks incorrect.
Yeah, it was bad. So we threw that out. It was bad. I later, like the next day, went and got some more flour. And then I also did a little more research into like some bao recipes. And I found a guy named Joshua Weissman, who's a huge YouTuber. He has over 7 million followers on YouTube. So
that was the guy I used last week for boba.
Yeah, exactly. Same guy. He had a really interesting bao recipe. I didn't use his filling. He made a barbecue bao bun recipe. And I didn't do the pork part because I wanted to still use something of the other recipe. But I did end up using his dough recipe, which came out really, really nice, actually. There's a bit more steps involved to it. You had to put the yeast in some warm water to kind of activate it. Then you mixed up some flour, sugar, some salt, and cornstarch in there. And then if you have a KitchenAid mixer, then you would throw that into the mixer. Otherwise, you can do it by hand. But you combine that flour mixture with the yeast mixture. And then you kind of get that kind of to a shaggy dough. And then you throw in a couple tablespoons of butter Once that's all incorporated, let your KitchenAid mixer go for 8 to 10 minutes, which is why I use the KitchenAid mixer, because that would be a long time and I'd be exhausted more so than I already am from the concert.
For sure.
And then we let that rest for an hour and a half. And then the rest of the steps were the same about how you made the buns, things like that. So with all of that said, jumping into our raver roast, I can talk about the outcome a bit. I guess I'll start since it is my episode.
Yeah, your turn.
I'll talk about the things we did wrong, just starting off. It tasted great. I thought the taste was excellent. The bread came out beautiful. It was a really nice dough. So Joshua Weissman's recipe, I think, is excellent for the bao recipe. This was my first time doing bread in a long, long time. I think the last time I did it was probably with my mom back when I was, 13, 14, something like that.
That focaccia, that took 6 hours.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I count that. It was a different kind of bread. We used to have this thing called late night baking sessions when we were younger and more spry.
We still do sometimes. Late night is now like 9 instead of midnight.
And we were like, you know what we're really craving at 11 o'clock at night? Focaccia.
Which we've never made before, so now is a great time to do it.
So we looked up a recipe and we're like, oh, okay, this shouldn't take that long. I failed to read that you needed to make the dough rise twice.
Yeah, it's a double proof situation.
It is. So after the first proof, we were looking at the recipe and I was like, uh-oh, I forgot, or I didn't see this. We have to let this rise for like another 2 hours.
Because you have to dimple it the second time. You dimple it with your fingers and then with olive oil.
Yeah. And let's just say by the time it came out at like 4 a.m., we didn't even care anymore. Then it was done.
But it tasted good though. Like it
tasted good. But I just wanted to go to bed.
It wasn't 4 a.m. It was like 2 a.m.
It
wasn't that late. We stayed out until 2 yesterday, so it wasn't that late.
Yeah, well, still. Anyway, so some of the issues that I had was actually not about making the bread itself or the filling. The filling was pretty easy, although I do think we should have minced it more. I did a lot of cutting it by hand, but I think the next time I would actually throw all of that into a food processor to get it really, really nice and small.
Would you add the meat too, or just the vegetables?
No, just the vegetables. I think the meat we could like cut up afterwards.
Yeah, because I only broke it up with the spoon. I would definitely say we should have chopped that.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I think we definitely needed to make the filling, all the individual components of the filling smaller. So that was our first thing. The second thing was I definitely think I overcrowded the steamer, so that ended up taking twice as long to cook, because the first time it came out, it was raw still.
Still raw.
So I put it in for another 13 minutes and let it rest for another 5. And then the second time around, it came out a lot better. Although it looked kind of weird because it was steamed and then it cooled down and then it got steamed again. So it kind of formed a weird exterior.
Like a skin over it.
Yeah. But when you break into the bread, it was obviously done. You could tell that the bread was cooked.
Mm-hmm.
The dough was also too thick when I rolled it out. So our ratio of filling to dough is off.
That could be because we don't have a small enough rolling pin.
Yeah, I didn't.
I think that should be our next Amazon purchase, jeffbezos.com.
Yeah.
Is we should buy a smaller rolling pin.
I might rate this in a couple ways. In terms of taste, I thought the filling was really great. And I'd probably give it, I feel it in my bones, it's a 77.5, 75 out of 10. Just a 7.5 out of 10. In terms of taste. And then when it comes to cooking, actually, despite all that stuff, I had a lot of fun. Making the bread was really fun. Not something I've done in a really long time. So it was just nice to do. I mean, the first time I felt pretty defeated because it didn't turn out well and we ran out of flour. But the second time around, it was really nice, actually. And it turned out really cool. And so that was really fun. I'd never used a steamer like this before, so that was really fun. I bought like a true traditional bamboo steamer just for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
It was $15 on Amazon. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So in terms of like cooking, I'd probably say like an 8 or 9 out of 10 cooking it. In terms of like fun level. And it's not like the boba where I'd never want to do that again. I definitely want to do this again, and I really want a second attempt. So, the pleats turned out terrible too. That's another thing I forgot. That was hard. But I think it was because of all those other things that we mentioned were issues. Okay, so that was my review. So I'd still rave on it.
I think like 9 out of 10. It was pretty tasty. And we were adding some sauce to it. So maybe that's something extra we could do next time, is make sure we have kind of a sauce on standby. It might have been because we made it too thick, but it was kind of doughy. And I was like,
yeah,
we kind of need a sauce to break this up. But yeah, I'm glad you had fun. I would say 9 out of 10. Thank you for tuning into Who Ate It First. If you like our podcast, please help us out by following our Instagram account to see some behind the scenes pictures, or by leaving us a review on your preferred podcast platform. Also, we'd love to hear from you. If you have a food you'd like us to do an episode on, pictures of your attempts to recreate the same dishes that we've covered, or a funny food story you'd like to share with us, then email us at whoateitfirst@gmail.com. We might share it in one of our future episodes or on our Instagram. Once again, I am Logan Runquist.
And I'm Kendall Runquist. And it's been Bowie good.